We're back with another Stories from the Other Side. You guys, I think these are some of my most favorite. I know they're your most favorite because they are our most listened to episodes, but hearing from real life women, how did you get through? Tell us a little bit about your story, right? What did you learn? What do you want to pass on? These are these powerful hours that we spend together hearing how we've all made it through to the other side. So let's get started. Welcome to the Crazy Ex-Wives Club, a podcast dedicated to helping women navigate the emotional journey that is divorce. I'm your host, Erica, and if you're trying to figure out life after the big D, welcome to the club. Whether you're contemplating divorce or dealing with the aftermath or any of the many phases in between, the club has got you covered. Each week, you'll hear stories from women who have been in your shoes. This isn't about spilling tea on divorce details. This is about giving you the tools to take control of your own healing journey. Listen in weekly for advice, tips, and tools to help you move through each stage of the process. Welcome back to another episode of the Crazy Ex-Wives Club. I'm your host, Erica, and today I have Deb Drummond with me. Now, Deb is big in the media world. She is the founder of Mission Accepted Media, but today she is here to share her story because she too journeyed through the big life transformation that is divorce to get to the other side. So thank you, Deb, for joining us.
Well, thank you, Erica, for asking me. It's refreshing to do a personal development podcast.
Right? Because when we spend so much time in the business side, her website is down in the show notes. You can pop over there. You can see all of the amazing things that Deb has accomplished in her life, all of the things that she has created and started and launched and moved through. And so being in a space to be able to kind of talk about the personal side, it's fun. We rarely get to do it when we spend so much time in our business helping others transform. Let's start off with, tell us a little bit about your story. Kind of what did your divorce story or transformation look like?
Well, I definitely thought I was marrying the man of my dreams. There was no doubt the day of, there was none of that. I thought that this was the forever story, even though, Erica, the day of my wedding, when I look back, he lost the wedding rings. We ordered 2 limousines. One showed up. My flowers showed up wrong. I was like, maybe this was a clue. I tested my resilience, or I don't know why that just popped into my head today. But honestly, he was what I thought was my forever relationship for sure. And really, we both loved our work. We were both in the creative field. There was none of those really gleaming, we're super different kind of people. We're creatives. We loved what we did. We never had an issue with each other's work. I was a few years older and I had a child already. So there was no challenging around how the kids were raised, how this was raised. We had a child together. There was no power struggle. There was really not a whole lot of signs. One of the things that drew me to him is because he came from what seemed to be a very stable family. His parents were together for, decades. And I didn't come from that. I waited to get married because I was like, I didn't want to do multiple marriages. I had experienced that being the child of. And so all of that. And then things started to change when I got pregnant. His personality changed. And we all deal with things with different people. And I'm like, nobody's perfect. I just thought I had a very high level selfish husband. I just thought, everybody has their thing, right?
Yeah.
But it was really kind of behind closed doors. And I'm like, God, that's so selfish. But I just thought, okay, we all have traits, and it just expanded. I'll just put it that way during pregnancy. And then one time he said to me, you don't care about me the way you used to care about me. And we went through that. And I thought, okay, maybe this is normal, but it was quite exasperated. Anyways, it's going to sound really strange. I woke up about 4 a.m. and I heard, go to his bank account. Honestly, I don't know why I'm telling you the story. Not even in my agenda. I heard, go to his bank account. Now, we had separate accounts. And I was like, what? I heard, get his debit card, get his card and go to his bank account. Literally, it was so loud. I went into his pants when he was in the shower and I took his card. And we were struggling financially. So I said to him that morning, hey, is there any funds at all? I need to pay something. He's like, absolutely not. He went to work. I put my son in the stroller. I went to his bank. I stood outside the ATM and I go, I don't know his password. And then I heard it. I heard a word and I put it in and I found money and I knew right then. So when he came home, I asked for his computer and his password and my life changed.
It's so powerful. I've like goosebumps all over. These are these little moments. You guys, these are the pieces that when we're in it, we don't realize. I can't tell you, Deb, just recently, the theme that has come up is it whispers. There's a whisper. There's a thing. There's a little thing that you just don't want to hear or you just ignore. And that's usually what we're fighting so hard against. Logically, in the present moment, we don't want to believe that this person is lying. We don't want to believe that they're not being who they say they are. Or, like you were saying, we tell ourselves these stories of, oh, it'll get better, or we're just in a phase, or, oh, this is normal. This is what happens. But there's usually a whisper, there's usually a subtle thing that is trying to reach you and trying to wake you up.
Yeah. It was interesting because, well, I'll just finish the story just to complete it so we can. Anyways, when I got his computer, I found out there was about 5 other people in my marriage
Yeah.
and had been in my marriage and So that I almost think, as we do, I could have got over the trauma of the incident, but it was difficult to get over the trauma of the betrayal and the fantasy. And this is the first nuclear family I had. And even to this day, and we have not been together for 13 years, Christmas is a little unnerving, I'll say. It's the only residual. And the residual was because that was the fantasy for me. That was we're going to have a nuclear family. I came from a divorced home, yada, yada, right? But yeah, that was definitely a turning point.
Right? Well, and
Turning
I
point.
mean, like the Christmas thing, it's those strong dreams that we have. We
Hmm.
create these perfect dreams that we wanna have, and we think that, the marriage, the family, the whatever. I did the same thing. Christmas was my big holiday, and so that was the thing. I wanted to create those hallmark moments, right? Where everybody comes
Hmm.
home and there's all this food and all the cookies and the rituals and the holiday things, and those pieces can last a little longer as you start to rewire and let go and move through the things that become the new version of your life. So I'm sure that was a lot, fellow finding infidelity in the marriage person over here. It is shocking, like, yeah, I just remember literally going into shock. I got in my car because I was so upset and I drove, but I couldn't figure out even where to go. Like I was like, just go somewhere. And I was like, but where can I go? And I don't know what to do, and just drove circles and circles and sat in a parking lot trying to Google like what's a restaurant I could go to, what's a coffee shop, like you it just is so shocking. But I think especially in the little bit that you've shared about your story, it really highlights the fact that these affairs typically come from somebody needing more attention, needing to feel that they are special, and it so often comes from an outside person. And we do hear it all the time, right? "Oh, the baby came and you're treating me different and this and that." And usually there's always a little bit of jealousy that rears up because the man hasn't had 9 months of a relationship with this little thing that's growing and moving and kicking you. But yeah, it leaves it open to, if that person can't figure out how to handle their own emotions, find somebody else to do it. And that is a trait, right? It's a trait that typically doesn't change. I think it can change, but it typically
Well,
doesn't
it's funny when
change.
you talk about changing because it was only after that. Now, this was, 10 years ago. I've been in this condo 13 years ago. So a lot, at least that. And then, of course, you start to dig, right? Now, I come from the personal development world, holistic center, intuitive, like intuitive radiation, all of that whole world. And so obviously I leaned into that and I was like, what's going on? So I remember a therapist saying to me, sounds like NPD. And I'm like, what's NPD? And it sounds like high level narcissistic personality disorder. Now, because I didn't put the pieces together until you're talking to someone about pieces. And honestly, 13 years ago, 14 years ago, 15 years ago, narcissism was not a word that we used. I literally, even though I was in personal development, had to look that up and get a book. And then the first book that I read, the first chapter was, this description. I was like, oh, I thought I had a husband was high level selfishness. But the one thing it was, I don't know how many months you spent trying to get them to not be selfish. I just want to let you know it's a rare situation. I'm like, months, it was 14 years, man, 17 years, right? And
Yeah.
I was like, but when you talk about like the change or hoping for the change or what have you, that's actually one of the things that affirms for me now
Mm.
that it was a good decision because, you can look, I'm presently single. And sometimes you look, particularly at holidays or things like that or whatever, or he's been with someone for a long time. Yet I can still see and hear the behavior because now I know the behavior is different. And I just say, God bless the consistent ones. Because for me, it just reminds me that the pain was worth it because I'm here in the fantasy of what that could, like you can go there sometimes. I don't really go there much anymore. But when I feel like, oh man, I'm single and da 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 da, and I play that trick on myself, I'm like, yeah, but the alternative of staying is how heavy would my body feel?
Mm.
How unhappy would I be? What disease would I have created because I was hurting on the inside? So,
Yeah, I think that's a really powerful story too, because when we do avoid the truth, I spent years avoiding the truth. I knew something was wrong, but I really could not get myself to believe that this was the end or that was he really cheating? You have all these inklings like something doesn't feel right and you ignore it and you ignore it. And for me, that stress had created a ton of physical issues. I had a ton of digestive issues. I had a ton of like allergy, inflammation. There just was inflammation everywhere. I was at my heaviest weight. I was trying to work out, but nothing was moving. I wasn't sleeping very well. Like all of these pieces. And then, move forward into the separation. When it became a reality, it was crushing, obviously, in the beginning, but it also all of a sudden, all of that stress melted quickly. There was a shift in new stress because at that point I was really scared. I didn't know how to start over. I didn't know how to rebuild after the dream that I wanted so bad was falling apart and crumbling. But the other pieces were all those other things, like I dropped 20 pounds probably in a month, like of inflammation and weight and shifting, everything just moved. And people are like, "Oh my God, you look so different. Like what is happening?" And we hold on to these things that are an energetic drain or a mismatch, and it always shows up in physical symptoms.
yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. What would
Absolutely.
you say as you kind of moved into that transition? Obviously learning about the other people, making the decision that, hey, I'm not doing this anymore. And there are those pieces. Okay, great. Learning that he probably has the narcissistic tendencies and is
Mhm.
a narcissist. And yeah, logically, all that stuff works. But emotionally, there's still a lot of healing and growth and pieces to move through. So, what were some of the tools or the techniques or the mindset shifts that helped you move forward?
Yeah. I mean, it's been a few days since those days,
Yeah.
but yet we share a child together, so those days can come up. And it took me a long time. I mean, a long time meaning a few years to not, send him off a text at Christmas. I'll be 100% honest. Or those moments or those days or whatever where I felt like it. And I felt like completely okay with it. I would rather have sent it there than anywhere else or kept it inside. And for him, it was the text that he, flew off. You know what I mean? I'm sure. So what did I do? I think I, like you, Erica, was in shock for a long time. I remember, oh, this one's coming up for me. Literally, I remember being at my doctor's office because, I wasn't feeling so good. And I remember saying something that I had, what I did to make myself feel better was, really lean into my friends. So obviously I had him leave the home and he was, living at his brother's. And I had never experienced anxiety before. So two things happened. I got so debilitated with anxiety, I couldn't leave the house. And I couldn't walk down to the corner street with my son. So my son didn't sleep. My son, I mean, when I say didn't sleep, I mean, he had his first night when he was 8. He came home from the hospital with only having one nap, and he nursed every 2 hours. He wouldn't take a cup, he wouldn't take a soother, he wouldn't take a bottle, nothing. I was exasperated. I think the universe waited until I was just kind of ready because I really didn't have an idea. His parents were together forever. He came home every day after work. And every year, our anniversary, when we went back to the church, we got married and got remarried. There was a love note on my kitchen counter every day we were together. So I didn't have an inkling. I didn't have an idea. I just thought he was an ass. I just thought, God, you're so selfish. So I thought it was a selfish issue. Didn't see it coming at all. So I think I was in shock for a very long time. And in that shock, I did what made myself feel better. And one day I woke up after having a conversation with one of these women because I called them because that's me. I was like, hey, how's it going? I actually called one of them on her wedding day, remarrying the guy she had an affair with, and they knew and he knew. And he called my husband and said, stop. Like, oh, there was all this dynamic I was finding out about it. So one day I just woke up because one of the women was at his work. I woke up and I called the movers. I don't know if you want me to say this on the show, but I called the movers and everything that he ever owned in the house went into that truck and they took it to his work.
That works.
Made me feel better. Like it really made me feel better. Right? My doctor was like, right on, and I actually sent along an email to his bosses saying, you need to know when this kind of stuff's going on your watch. There's families back at home. And my 2-year-old looks out the window waiting for his dad to pull in the driveway. I did things like that, but I also cried and I also journaled and I also, and I had 2 kids to take care of that were in trauma. So I think for me, a lot of it was just like take care of myself when I could, if I could. I also had 18 staff running a massage studio and I had to keep a roof over our heads and he had emptied the accounts. So we had no money, heartbreaking. I mean, it was just kind of a crappy story, to be honest with you. So I went into survival. And I did what I needed to do and said what I needed to say when I needed to say it. And I'm really happy about that. I'm glad I didn't take it on. Like I didn't take it on, oh, it's me. I'm not Anna. Like I didn't take that. I was pretty good on my whole self person thing. And I had to have him move back home. I could not function. So he moved into another bedroom and the world perceived us probably together. And it wasn't until, I had this high needs child. He was dying to come back home. He was like, the house was so full of flowers. I said, stop, it looks like a funeral home in here. So he wanted to come back, but I just had to process it. And after about a year and a half, 2 years, like literally, that's how long he was staying at the house. I was just putting my makeup on in the mirror and I couldn't decide, do I stay, do you go? And then I heard, again, it always sounds like I have, but that's just kind of, I'm an audio. And I heard, you need to make a decision and you need to make it today. And I just looked in the mirror as I was putting on my makeup and I said, okay, I'm going to go. And then I went and found another place because I knew he wouldn't leave and all those things. So for me, I think it was, yeah, I had to have him come back because I literally couldn't go to the bank and I had to work through that anxiety. So my therapy per se was about trying to get through the anxiety and the shock and working with all of that. And honestly, it took me a couple of years. I remember God, let's face it, he was probably out, taking care of where he needed to take care of. But I remember when I finally, when the break finally happened and the thought of another person came into my life, I could not even kiss another person for about a year and a half after that happened. And then I had an experience like you did in a different way is finally when I was able to be with someone, like safe enough to be with someone physically, I dropped 10 pounds in a weekend.
Yeah, because we hold on to the stuff, whether it's stress or inflammation or bloat or all those pieces, because it is a protective layer. It is. And so there are pieces that when we're ready, we put them down. And there's no shame in however long it takes. There's no shame in, if you're sitting on the other side and you're still debating and you're like, had I been sitting in this debate for years? Okay, well, up until now, you haven't been ready to make the decision. Are you ready? It takes being ready because either way, it is going to be intense. There's kids involved, helping them through it, helping yourself through it. There's always a shift in money and support systems and where you're going to live, but we get through it. But we figure it out. The consistent theme from every woman who's been on the show has been like, I didn't know. I had zero idea how I was going to do this. There was no money. I didn't know what we were going to do. And then one day at a time, I got it together and I moved forward. And so looking at you, sitting here now as we're chatting, and people are like, I would have never guessed that you had crippling anxiety. I would have never guessed, even the fact that you were already running a business then compared to how many people and teams and businesses you run now, people will be like, well, that wouldn't happen to her. Like she's got everything together. But we all lose it, right? Like it's the tower card in tarot if you're into it, but it's like the big crumbling. Everything crumbles down for you to be left in the middle of who you are and to find those tools in your personality and your traits and your gifts and what you're called to do to pick it back up and move forward.
Oh, 100%, and here's the misstep, I think. Sometimes people perceive their divorce experience based on the personality that shows up. Just because someone's showing up to work and putting their face on, just because it doesn't mean like divorce is debilitating for most people, maybe not as much for the person that's decided to leave or whatever, because they've had time to prepare. I think the partner that's kind of gets deregulated really quickly, that's a whole nervous system. And I remember a really good friend of mine at the time. So he'd call on Sundays. He's like, "How you doing?" And I'd be doing and doing. And he goes, for whatever reason, across the board, Sunday seems to be more of a difficult time, particularly if you had family. And then he said something to me that made me feel fantastic. He said, "Look, at statistics show." Now, I like analytics, so it worked for me. Statistics show that however many years you're together, it takes 2 months of uncoupling. So if you were to, if I'm 20 years, he's like, you're probably not going to be completely done in about 3 months. Now, it doesn't mean that you put yourself to that and you keep putting your foot forward, but I thought that really makes sense. He goes, sometimes it comes down to the first trip that you make by yourself, which actually was interesting. It was the first time I took a trip by myself and it was amazing. I had such a divorce healing experience on this trip to Rome by myself. I know it sounds very eat, pray, love, but it happened to be Rome. But it was like just knowing that he said, look at it. It's just like, who planned the holidays? Who paid that hydro bill? Who knew the password to that account? Like all those things. So he goes, it's about 2 months every year of just rewiring, Yeah.
Yeah.
And yes, if you seem to be a capable person, which I think to me, from people that I see that particularly have kids, if they weren't capable for it, they get downright capable pretty quick because it's about them and that it's you get through it. You get through it. But that I just found that really comforting in an interesting kind of way.
If you're feeling overwhelmed, exhausted from overthinking, and stuck in uncertainty, this message is for you. You don't have to keep feeling that way. Inside the club, you'll find a safe space to rediscover who you are, clarify what you want, and determine how you want to move forward. Surrounded by women who truly understand and guided by expert support, you are not alone on this journey. Join us at thecrazyexwivesclub.com/the club. It's time to reclaim your life. Yeah, you've got to give yourself some time. I think all those firsts are really hard. They just are. The first birthday of your kid, because while we were separated, we still did birthdays together. So then we're now divorced and it's the first birthday and it was his dad's night. And so like we had the birthday party at Chuck E. Cheese or whatever, because I don't know, he was 4.
Yeah.
But then afterwards he went home with dad. And now I'm like alone in this big empty house on my kid's birthday, like sobbing in the corner of the kitchen.
Yeah.
And got through it though, right? Like you get to feel the feels and they don't ruin you.
Right.
So yeah, feel the feels, cry it, sob it out, talk to the friend, right? Lots of ugly crying. I too loved travel for finding myself again. Because then I had made a reel. It's funny. I made a reel about go travel and find yourself. And of course, there were a lot of unhappy men that rolled in to be like, you're traveling because you took all his money. And I was like, well, I didn't. But
if I did, I would have stayed at better hotels. And what's
yeah,
it
it
to
was
you?
like I was doing it on the cheap. You don't understand. I was packing fruits and nuts and whatever. But the thing is that for me, there's no expectation when you travel. And you don't have anybody who's relying on you to make the dinner or to get them up. So you just get to do you. And you're like, what do I want to do next? Do I want to walk down to the beach? Do I want to take a nap? Do I want to go sit at a restaurant? And that challenge in itself, taking yourself out to a restaurant, taking yourself out to a bar. I took myself to the movies solo. That was not fun. I don't know that I'd do that again, but the rest of them were fine. But travel was such an opportunity to find yourself.
It's funny that you say that about movies because that is my saving grace and it's my fantasy and I still do it to this day. Going to a movie by myself because you know what? And I just recently went to a movie with somebody and they were like kind of saying a few things in the movie. And, we're pals, but not pals enough for me to go, excuse me, don't say a frigging word. You know what I mean? I don't care that you like that song. You know what I mean? And we're friends. I was just like, but not friends enough that if you go, shut up. But what's interesting that you say that because When I had that as well, like I had this really magical mystery tour and ended up in Rome and never thought I could do a trip by myself and thought I was going to die and all that kind of thing. And the perception that it actually came from money from him, or that,
Mm.
right? That whole thing, oh, she ends up with, let me tell you,
Yeah.
sisters, if you're out there and you were the person that ended up getting gutted financially and gutted emotionally, that's my story. And it's a misconception that still here we are in 2025, that people think that women walk away with the house and they walk away with the car and they walk away with this. And honestly, that's just not how it is anymore. It is a whole different ballgame. I'm not saying one doesn't or they might not, but just because you have the kids doesn't mean you get all the cash.
I think it is very interesting. It's kind of like in general, it's very interesting about news, because we hear it too about the story I always heard it about. And I have not researched this. You guys do not come at me for the wrong facts right now, but kidnapping, right? Because we hear about every Amber Alert, every
Yeah.
kidnapping, every whatever. We think that it's so much more than it used to be. And they're like, well, it's just because news is now global. Whereas it used to be just in your towns. When we looked
Yeah.
at, divorces, right? Now we hear, and they're on social and they're all the time because they're very hurt. Like when one person wins in a very hurtful or mean way, the other person takes all that pain and energy and blasts it on social media, and then we hear it all over the place. And so we still think that there is this narrative that, the majority of women always win. They get all the money. And have I seen it happen? 100%. 100%. I have seen it. I have talked to hundreds of men who are like, this is what she did. And this is, like I sacrificed all this stuff and I did all this stuff, right? And the
Yeah.
reality is that in divorce, two people get hurt. They always do. And when our emotions run the show, we do mean things to other people. And there are so many other stories too of it going the other way. I was talking to a woman, was a friend of the woman who was going through the divorce, but he had cheated. She was the primary breadwinner. He didn't work at all. And so he was going, and they had no kids, and he was going after spousal support.
Yeah.
And to cover the, lawyer fees and whatever else, they had to sell their main house, which meant they kept the like cabin. I say cabin loosely because it's like a lake house. Like
Yeah. Yeah.
it's a beautiful second house that he had the affair in. And he's like, well, you can have that. And she's like, why would I want that? So she, as the breadwinner, moved into like a tiny apartment. Every time she got a new raise or new like benefits at work, because the divorce wasn't final, his lawyers went back in. And it just was years of somebody playing games. And
Yeah.
so people get hurt on both sides. People pull shitty asshole stuff on both sides. All we can control is our own actions. Like how much more pain are we creating for somebody else? Yes, we're hurt. Yes, we're angry. Yes, I screamed and yelled and said mean, hurtful things. And I would catch myself being like, "Hey, I'm going after more money on the house, or I'm going after more because I'm pissed and I'm hurt at you." So take a pause, take a step back, right? Can we be adults and move through this? Hopefully, more people can start to do that, that we can find a way to move through it because we already both lost. We already both lost. Everybody in divorce loses. The kids lose, the adults lose. Even if somebody cheats, even if they move on right away, it still is a big restart. And so I just want people to be able to find a way that they can do it with their own values, that
Mhm.
like, hey, I'm choosing to do this in a way that feels good for me. So, any other tips for other women? I mean, we've had a lot already, you
Yeah.
guys. Believe in yourself, move forward. But what else? What else would you share for them
Oh,
listening?
absolutely. Absolutely. So I was fortunate at the time that, like you said, I had a company and I loved what I did. So for me, I had another love in my life. And that might sound ridiculous, but I had a love. I had kids. I loved what I did. I might have walked into the office and washed my face off and threw my makeup on twice, but I walked into something I loved. If you have a career or a business or a hobby or something that you love, double down. Because if you love it, it probably is a part of you. Like if you love it, it's probably a part of you. There's probably something there that gives you esteem. I would say there's business esteem and self esteem. And if I'm going to work and getting business esteem because I feel it crap when I leave the office, who cares? Like, who cares where it comes from?
Yeah.
If you walk into work and you've got colleagues that appreciate you and respect you and all the things that you wish were happening outside it, double down, stay an extra hour at work. who cares? Let the love pour wherever it came from. So for me, part of the restart was, for me, digging more down into my business, spending more time there, getting super creative, hanging out where there already is love, not having to go and try and find love. The other thing for me was really knowing myself. So for me, even today, I mean, I'm like this big love fest, whatever. Even today, if I get hurt, my girlfriend will go, "You don't want me to hug you, right?" I'm like, "No, I'm a solid 3 days." You know what I mean? It takes me a while to digest and process my feelings. So for me, movies by myself were great because I didn't have to be anything to anybody. Art gallery by myself didn't have to be anything to anybody. So I couldn't leave my house. And so I had, I accommodated that. It might have been my ex that came, but if it's not your ex, it could be someone that was willing to, he just went back in the house, but it could be someone that you can trust to help you through that emotional crippling, whatever your crippling was. Mine happened to be anxiety, right? So whatever your crippling, if you're experiencing crippling, for me, it was like massage, acupuncture, and I wrote lists. I wrote lists. I wrote lists about my future. I write lists anyways. I'm a list queen. But for me, I felt great accomplishment if I crossed off things from the day. If I felt, for me, I needed to feel like I had control of my emotions, control of my life. So I cleaned drawers. I got rid of clothes I didn't want anymore. Like I did a lot of external to make me feel like I had some kind of control internal, because I didn't have a whole lot of control internal. I had no control over him. I continued to hear stories and things unfolding like I do it. I said, 2, 3 years, to the point where you're like, please don't share those stories because I don't need any more evidence. It's really, I'm gone. So I did that. And, and God bless. I remember when I was going through divorce, I was like, oh man, I need to go talk to every one of my friends that went through a divorce before I ever went through one and apologize, because I just had no idea the depths. So hanging out with people, like now there's so many more resources, right? Look at this. They can come to your show and feel better. Double down, do what Erica's doing. Hang out with people that are having that same experience, because it doesn't have to be an affair. It can be this. It doesn't matter because the feelings are the same. So we're hanging on. I think you've got a group, right? There's a group of people who go talk in. So go do that. I didn't have that. I had to rely on one girlfriend. God bless her. We actually went through divorce at the same time. No one else would have listened to us. I needed someone to confirm my crappy feelings. I needed someone to say, yeah, that was a real a-hole move that he did. And not say, well, it takes two. I remember the first person said it takes two. I was like, if I could have reached through the phone, because they decided to tell my 11-year-old daughter that, I wanted to reach through that phone and I would have, right, across the table. So if you have resources like this, we just didn't. So we just, and I had a friend that I could call. I go, are you free? She's like, yeah, let her rip. And I would just blow off my steam. I'd go, talk to you later. She's like, goodbye. She didn't. That was some agreements that I did. And do what you can to make yourself feel better. Like I said, sometimes Christmas is still kind of crappy. So I do something like when I came home, like I get Christmas Eve and breakfast and all that stuff. And then off they go for Christmas evening. Well, off they go. My son's 21 and my daughter's 31. She has her own life and kids. But I started to relish and really appreciate, after the whole Christmas thing and everyone's having like their fifth turkey, I was at home. I was putting things away. I was getting my house ready to do my Boxing Day shopping the next day and start the year anew. So I just turned it around. And I know I just kind of rattled off a whole bunch of things, Erica, but man, I would have loved to have something like a support like what you offer, but do what you can do to make yourself feel better and don't judge it.
I love it. All right, we're going to break them down for you. Let's see if I remember them all.
Oh, okay, sorry, I rattled.
Oh, no, you're good. They were great. That's why I was like, yes, 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 and more of that. Go where the love already is. So powerful because it is right. You're all of a sudden looking like, oh, this love is gone. Oh, this relationship. And the reality is it probably wasn't quite there right before it all fell apart. Maybe it was. Your story was definitely unique that you still were having daily love letters. Typically, we're not hearing that, right? It was a little stressed before, it was strained before, but it gives you the opportunity to figure out what do you really love and then do more of it. I started saying no to a lot of things. I no longer had the societal expectation that I had to be available, that I had to do this thing. And so when an invite would come up, I'd ask myself and be like, well, do I love it? Do I love it? Is this something that's going to fill me up? Because I do not have the bandwidth for anything else that is taking away from my energy, my time, my money, my whatever. So focus on the areas that you've already got love. Your support system. So yes, the club, you guys, the club is the online divorce community. It is designed specifically to give you those people, the support and the people that you need who understand what you've been through. Because you had your example of what somebody said. Mine was, they could be a bunch of married friends. Everyone was married, everyone had kids. And so where are they at? They're overwhelmed. They want a night off. They want a break. And so they'd be like, oh, just enjoy your free time, take a bath, do something for you. Right. And I was like, if somebody else tells me to go take a bath, I'm going to scream. Like, we all do it, but it's not helpful divorce advice. It's not helpful divorce advice. Don't tell your divorced person to go take a bath. So means well, everybody means well when they say it. So if you're struggling because your support system, who loves you, they do love you, but that doesn't mean that they're the right person that's going to be able to hold you up and pick you up and be there to vent. So the club, you can learn more about it. You guys, the link is down below. It's an annual or monthly membership. You have support in the community. You have a space. There's literally a chat feed just for you to vent and get support. There's a place to celebrate. We meet 3 times during the month. Actually, tomorrow I do divorce detox, which is an hour of embodiment. So an hour of me guiding you through letting it go, being in your body. You get to feel how good it can feel when you put the shit down. Then we also meet and we network. We have the after party, the cool place to be, right? Where you get to meet your next divorce bestie. And then we have a hot seat healing. So it's there for you to have the right support, because it's 2 steps forward, 1 step back, 2 steps forward, 1 step back. And so the support system will change everything. I had 3 friends, different phases, right? I talk about the 3 phases of divorce. There was one in the beginning when I was trying to figure out if I stay or go. There was one for when I left and I had to figure out who the hell I was. And then there was a third when I was like, okay, I'm ready to thrive. I'm ready to go out. I'm ready to socialize. I'm ready to start dating, right? Different personalities, different energy supported me through. And then I think the last thing that I wanted to highlight on is what you were saying, how when you talked about the holidays, shifting your perception, shifting your focus on it. How is this serving me? Which sounds all fine and dandy until you're in the moment where it really hurts. And that's another one of those things that somebody's, oh, what's the silver lining? Like, you don't want to hear it. So in this neutral space where we're not near any holiday, 4th of July is coming up here for us in the US here around the corner, but look at holidays as a test and learn. You get the opportunity to take a look at how you've run the holidays in the past. What did I really like? What stressed me out? What would I prefer not to do? Let go of the stuff you don't want to do. Look at the stuff that stressed you out and ask if you still want to do it or if you want to let it go. And then give yourself permission to figure out what you want it to look like going forward. It's not going to be perfect the first year. Christmases, again, were my thing. So, one year it was I still made all of the food and I had a tiny little oven. And so one thing could go in the oven at a time. It took all day to cook all the sides and all the pies and it was a turkey and a ham and potatoes and sweet potatoes and beans and whatever else. And then you ate and it was done 20 minutes later. And I was like, oh my God, the dishes, like the cooking, the all day cooking, and then the dishes. And then okay, so I was like, yeah, not going to do that for a little bit. Then I tried ordering a holiday meal kit of actual holiday food. And I was like, this doesn't taste like my grandma's stuffing. I don't like it. Right. Then I ordered a completely different restaurant. I had smoked meats. It was really yummy. Smoked barbecue chicken stuff. But some a splurge, a restaurant I wouldn't normally go to that I ordered it and I loved it. Sometimes I stayed home. Sometimes I traveled. I figured out what felt good and what did I want to keep. And so now where it's landed is I do some of the cooking, but not all the cooking. I make sure to stay on top of my energy and not overwhelm myself with expectations of what it needs to be so that I can't enjoy it. But it was every year, with my son or without my son, we tried and learned and tested until we figured out what do we really want it to look like. So don't beat yourself up in the journey. It is a journey. It's not oh, great, paperwork signed. We're all done. I know what the answer is. You get this opportunity to figure out who you are. What do you want to keep in your life? What do you want to build in your life? Where do you want to put your energy? And again, permission slip to say no. You don't have to do any of the stuff that you don't want to do anymore. You get to write a new destiny and write a new chapter forward. I love that. Well, it's been wonderful chatting, Deb. Thank you so much for sharing your story and your ahas and your learning. For those of you listening, all of Deb's info is down in the show notes. We've got our website over there. We've got our social handles. It's also on the crazyexwivesclub.com under episodes. Until next week, give yourself grace. Give yourself grace. Give yourself some quiet time, right? Staying busy doesn't always help. And start to listen to that whisper. And when you're ready, come over and join me in the club. We will pick you up. We will help you find your way, and you will be able to move forward into your next beautiful chapter. And that's it. Another great episode of the Crazy Ex-Wives Club, a podcast for women learning how to heal from their divorce. Tune in next week for more advice and tips to help you figure out life after divorce. And until then, give yourself grace, do the best you can, and know that this is all part of the process.